Some South Africans are falling victim to fraudsters on social media. Some scammers pretend to be selling forex trading platforms while others claim to be Bitcoin traders, promising hundreds of thousands in profits. They often say all they have to do is create a trade account on a platform. After that, send the Bitcoin money they used to purchase to the account and have then created a Bitcoin wallet. So far, victims are crying foul. So to analyze this, we have Lavan Gopaul, who is director at Africa Merchant. Lavan, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Colin. Good afternoon to all of your viewers. Bitcoin has needed more.
Yeah, you know, most of the time, Lavan, we hear of scammers on social media, and they start first with friendship requests, and they warm you up, like, you know, saying that they are so-and-so from KwaZulu-Natal or Western Cape or Johannesburg, based in Dubai. And later on, they introduce the subject, either Bitcoin or Forex. So now let's talk about the social media behavior of susceptible members of the public who fall prey in this sense, because other people say they are too clever to recognize them. But on the other hand, there are people who are falling victim. So let's just start there. How does it come that people get convinced?
So during difficult times, and we've seen that over the last year or so, with the COVID lockdown, there's been very little by way of business turnover, and jobs have been scarce. So money is something that people have in short supply. Opportunities to make a quick buck is the attraction. And so scammers prey on those that are probably the most weak in society, and you find elaborate schemes being put together. All we are witnessing now, using social media, using the current technology, are scams that have been played over the last century or so, and they're just reworked using modern technology. What we're observing with the Bitcoin type of scams have occurred in the past, using shares, using currencies. A number of unscrupulous players would have swindled people. You've seen instances of the Ponzi scheme going back about 100 years. There's the South Sea bubble, which refers to a crisis in England about 200 years ago. So there have been a number of scams over time. And whenever money or big money is involved, there'll always be scam artists.
And then when it comes to one being able to identify these scamsters, how does one get to really do a fact check before they engage them?
So the first stop is you want to make sure that whoever you deal with is a regulated investment advisor, stockbroker, trader. They need to be, in South Africa, affiliated with the FSCA, that's the controlling body. Other jurisdictions have similar agencies put in place. Now, these registrations are very important. And when you're uncertain, you can always speak to your accountant, your attorney, look for somebody that is a registered investment advisor in another space. An insurance broker may even be able to guide you. But certainly when you're in doubt, you want to make sure that whoever you speak to is registered with the FSCA. Bear in mind some of the problems that we have amidst this Bitcoin scam is the fact that Bitcoin itself is not fully regulated in a number of jurisdictions. So in South Africa, there isn't clear legislation about Bitcoin. In terms of what SARS says, is that any profits or any gains that you make from your Bitcoin transactions, they will want that to be declared for income tax purposes. But in terms of the transaction that you involve yourself with Bitcoin, some of it touches on the border of exchange control violation. the Reserve Bank is the correct channel to be going through when dealing with these types of transactions. And the thousands or the hundreds of thousands of people that are involved with Bitcoin transaction, I don't believe are getting the Reserve Bank approval for those transactions. Something else that we want to be very careful about is the fact that Bitcoin's murky past with respect to it being the currency of favor for drug dealers, for terrorists, and for other illegal activity means that it's a go-to place for those type of characters, and there would be a number of scams that come out of it.
Lavan, when you were still a student at Harvard, you went to Boston University to present an academic paper on Bitcoin. Tell us a little bit about your research in as far as this digital currency is concerned.
So at the end of 2017, we put together a symposium to discuss Bitcoin and to flesh out its legality and its tradability. Bear in mind that a number of factors rest on the Bitcoin argument. There are a number of legal questions that come into play. And at that symposium, we invited people from the SEC, the Attorney General was present, as well as a member of Congress, all of them to discuss Bitcoin. And there had been a number of similar symposiums that had been going on at the same time. Some of the outcomes were with respect to defining it as an asset, and there was a great deal of argument or discussion about this, and the clearest definition we could get was to call Bitcoin a commodity. And this means that if it's a commodity, it can be easily traded. And so a number of countries have gone on to recognize it as a commodity. And so they are able to use the commodity trading rules in terms of transactions relating to Bitcoin. In terms of it being an asset, becomes a difficult question because the further question is, can it be legal tender? So in South Africa, the law is quite clear. Only South African rands are considered as legal tender in transactions. You may have exchanges, and so you may exchange an apple for an orange, but for legal tender definition, it's the South African rand. And so a number of other issues have come into play with regards to exchange control, that we call it in South Africa, and that is similarly defined in other nations. You'll understand that a number of countries are very sensitive about this. And so places like China, Russia, have now banned the trade of Bitcoin. You're not allowed to transact in it, and you're not allowed to purchase goods and services using Bitcoin. So it does become very difficult, and it goes back to its definition from a legal point of view. From a financial play, there is a question of now, as a commodity, you're able to trade, you're able to speculate on it, but is this an investment? And the answer is no, it is not an investment. You cannot think of it as you would when you purchase some real estate and you're building a house on it. That may be considered an investment. Or you were to buy shares on any company listed on the stock exchange, and let's say Anglo-American, you're making an investment. When you are dealing in Bitcoin, it is of a speculative nature. And some of the other issues that have come out is its ultimate use. Now, there can be a number of creative uses as we go on in time. Currently, people are using Bitcoin to purchase goods and services all over the world. So it's already considered as a currency. What is important with respect to Bitcoin and similar cryptocurrencies is the origination. When you consider that these are just invented in thin air and then sold on, and it's speculators that chase the price higher. So the origination is important. And that means that if you have proper rules about its origination, you can control the kind of illegal activity that will prey on cryptocurrency. One of the most important takeaways from this was blockchain, which was the ledger. And this is an important record-keeping system that has got an application not only in cryptocurrency, but within the space of financial instruments globally as well.
We see the value of Bitcoin really growing exponentially on the markets every time when we do the market updates. And you know, like today I saw you went through an article where four South Africans have been scammed. And one of them invested 3,000 Rand at first and got 11,000 Rand in a matter of weeks. But then the inevitable would happen after recruiting family members and opening various accounts, and all of them got robbed. Just on that note, before we conclude on this, Lavan, what insightful caution would you propose to South Africans to really deal with this matter so that such financial catastrophes can be prevented?
The first bit of advice is to deal with reputable investment advisors, deal with investment houses that are recognized and registered with the FSCA, that's a Financial Services Conduct Authority. It's very important that you verify that registration. So whoever you're going to be giving your money to, please make sure that registration is put in place and that these traders or these advisors are approved. You also would like to verify your transactions by speaking to others that have used the services of this investment advisor. And the general rule with investments is there's no free money. There's no easy money. So you may be able to speculate, and you could be on the right side of that speculation, whether it is oil or gold or Bitcoin, and it may be going up and in your favor. But that can change very quickly. And there are a number of investors that have got hurt with Bitcoin in legitimate transactions just because of the volatility. Now, that's not only an instance of Bitcoin, that can apply to currencies or commodities in general. So volatility is something that you want to be careful of. And Bitcoin has a very volatile nature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Lavan, thank you so much for making time to speak to us. And one thing that you and I and other members of the public should be wary of is also people using false identities to scam them. And I mean, even myself, I know on social media, I'm known as, somebody else, but they use my pictures and they take money from people. And they can as well do the same with you and somebody who's watching there at home. And let's hope that this really, something needs to be done as far as protecting people's identities and secrets. I remember one international soccer star, Thierry Henry, said that he's going to quit social media until something is done when it comes to copyright issues. And we're really suffering as members of the public.
So we are. Colin, I just want to include that Bitcoin has also been used on a number of occasions where people were in a crisis in Zimbabwe at the end of 2017 and they needed to get funds out to their families in Zimbabwe, those that were working in the UK or in South Africa, and they made use of Bitcoin. At the same time, you find people in desperate and in dire problems in Venezuela, and Bitcoin was used. However, Bitcoin is also used by kidnappers and drug dealers, and it's an easy way to launder money across country or to move funds from, let's say, South Africa to some other jurisdiction. And so for those reasons, South African authorities are very sensitive about regulating Bitcoin until proper mechanisms can be put in play. I believe that the authorities in general are respectful of cryptocurrencies, and there is a definite place for it in the future of transactions. However, it must be seriously regulated to avoid the criminal activity. And to date, there's been very few regulations put in place, and a number of countries have not been able to properly regulate it. So in the absence of this, giants like China have just closed the door to it. I'm sure that once proper regulations come into play, China may reconsider.
Yeah, All right. Thank you so much, Lavan, for making time to speak to us. Very, very serious conversation we need to really manage and indulge in to warn members of the public. And all we can say to them is be careful out there and don't fall for it. Thank you, Lavan.